Good afternoon, guys. So this is just a quick chat about how we're going to perform a functional assessment for any potential new client that's going to be coming into the practice. Now, as you well know, the basic functional assessment will start off with some information by the potential patient, and they're going to be filling out the front page of our regular initial consult sheet. So we're going to have all of the data and all of the information from the patient, and the likelihood is that they may potentially come in with some sort of an issue. It might be maybe a little bit of a hip issue or a low back issue that they might have concerns about. So remember, they're not coming in for treatment yet. They're just coming in for a complementary functional assessment. Now, as with all our functional assessments, we're going to be doing 4 things. This is what we're going to be offering each individual, and it's going to consist of your basic structural analysis, which you're all familiar with. So I won't go into detail about the structural analysis. Just start off with the lumbar pelvic area, look at anatomical landmarks. So all of the basic stuff. So we're using Connor here as an example. So in a A to P position, so check out iliac crest height, have a look at ASISs and get into the GTs or greater trochanters, and have a look what's happening through there, whether there's any discrepancy or some difference between the right and the left hand side. Now, of course, we can't see Connor's feet here, but Connor will be, he won't have his shoes on, and you want to be looking for any changes within the feet, hyperpronation, whether there's any external rotation of the hip. So that's your front assessment. Your posterior assessment, exactly the same thing. This time we're looking at PSISs, getting another little sticky beak at the iliac crest, but we're also going to have a look at the lumbar spine. So have a look at whether the QL is hyper or hypotonic, whether there's a lumbar curve, whether there's any correlative change that potentially might be contributing to the patient's initial consultation. So that's a structural analysis, very straightforward, very basic. Obviously have a look at the shoulders as well, because they actually might be reporting some sort of shoulder issues. So look at the scapulae, check out whether there's any dyskinesis of the scapula, whether there's any atrophy, hypertrophy of the musculature, check out whether the left or the right hand side is a mirror image or not, and try and correlate it potentially to the patient's symptoms. So that's our first step. So structural analysis is where we're going to start. The next step is we'll get the patient to do a squat test. So Connor, if you don't mind facing the camera for me. So just ask them to do a squat. So squatting for me and coming back up. And so you want to observe them from the front, number 1. But number 2, observe them from the side. So the lateral position. So doing a squat now for me and coming back up. And, you know, Connor's a very experienced PT, so his squat is actually pretty fantastic. But, you know, with your squat test, you're looking for any difference between the left and the right hand side. You're looking at any, let's say, change in the valgus angle of the knee, hyperpronation of the foot. So something that might stand out and potentially might be clinically significant. Now, in that lateral position, also have a look at how the lumbar spine moves, whether the spine is balanced or upright. Have a look at the hip levels relative to the floor, so whether they're parallel to the floor as they go down deep into the squat. And you're always questioning, if, for example, they come in with a hip problem, you're always questioning, does the squat, and at which stage of the squat, does that cause or reproduce the patient's pain? So that's fundamentally important. So that's your double leg squat. So look for any differences, any abnormalities that you might pick up. Now, the next test that we want to do is the single leg squat. So I'll get you to balance on your right leg first of all for me, Connor, and going down just as far as you can. And same thing on that left hand side, just as far as you can, okay? Same thing, look for any differences, check out any difference, let's say in balance, have a look at the valgus angulation of the knee, watch what's happening with the hips, whether there's any stability or instability, whether there's any apprehension, and question, does any of those movements cause discomfort? Okay, so that's the third part of our assessment. And last but not least, just go through your orthopedic active range of motion assessment. So I'll get Connor to sit facing that way. And with your orthopedic active range of motion, your regular stuff. You want to look at just three movements really. You want to look at rotation, lateral flexion, add a little bit of flexion, and you may consider extension as well. In actual fact, add in one more, and you want to do a Kemp's maneuver. So pop your arms across your chest, turn your whole body to the right hand side and to the left hand side. Now we're looking at any differences between the left and the right hand side, whether there's any discomfort going on through there. Bend to the right, bend to the left hand side, so lateral flexion, then arching your back backwards like so, and now bending your back in a forward direction like so, and relaxing. And then last but not least, this is the Kemp's maneuver, so arms across your chest, rotate and lean back, and rotate and lean back. Okay, so the usual stuff, look at the quality of movement, the range of movement, whether there's any reproduction of symptoms or whether there's any soreness, and you want to highlight this to the person that you're assessing. So that's our active range of motion. Don't worry about passive or resisted, we'll leave that for the initial consult. And last but not least, lying on your back now for me, Connor. Let's have a quick look at the hips. And we're going to get the patient to actively perform this. So let's flex your hip on that left-hand side. So bring your knee to your chest for me, as far as you can go. Just by yourself and relaxing. Now right-hand side and relaxing. And then we're going to ask the patient, pop your knee 90 degrees like so. And I want you to bring your foot in that direction like so, and then out towards me. And let's compare it to the opposite side. So out and in. Exactly the same thing, we're comparing left and right hand side, looking at quality range plus reproduction of pain. And hypothetically speaking, let's say someone comes in with, oh, I've got a niggle in my hip on that left hand side. So you want to try and correlate your findings. Remember, we're not trying to provide a diagnosis for the patient, it's just an assessment. We're picking up alterations in movement patterns, and whether these alterations in movement patterns might be contributing to the patient's problem. And this is where you have to try and start to correlate your findings. Hypothetically speaking, they might come in with front-sided hip pain, so you probably would have noticed a little bit of stiffness in that lumbar spine on movement, plus some of those movement patterns of the hip would have been altered as well. So this is where you want to try and correlate what you're finding on the patient once you're assessing them, and giving them some input, of course, not clinical input diagnostically, but more functional input. And this is where you want to make a suggestion. I think we need to get you back in a couple of days' time or sometime next week, and let's conduct an initial consultation, which is where we're going to spend a good 45 minutes going through all of the movements. We're going to add, the passive testing, the resisted testing. We're also going to add orthopedic testing. So this is what you want to do to make that conversion of getting the patient in, as opposed to just a complementary functional assessment. So that's it, guys.
Perfect.